Good day, Viking.TV. My name is Lawton, and I'm thrilled to be here on Viking.TV today to tell you about our Niagara and the Great Lakes itinerary, debuting in the spring of 2022. I'm the Expedition Operations Manager for Viking and feel an affinity for this itinerary, as I was born within 200 kilometers of the Welland Canal a few years ago, one of the feature points of this itinerary. I've been with Viking for almost 2 years. I'm thrilled to be heading to Norway tomorrow to see the Viking Octantis with my own eyes and start the multi-week training program of our expedition team prior to embarkation of the ship. I'm Canadian. You might have picked that up already, living just outside Vancouver, BC, in the beautiful town of Squamish, and have been working on and developing itineraries for expedition cruise vessels for the last 23 years, from the Arctic to the Antarctic, up the Amazon River, and to many other regions of the world.
Viking has created the ultimate itineraries designed to take you to the Great Lakes, Eastern Canada, the Arctic and Antarctica. Vast expanses of fresh water and the development of a navigable waterway form the industrial heartland of two great countries, spawning a story of illicit rum running, the occasional border spat, friendship and partnership that continues to this day. This creates the fabric of a story that you can experience during landings and excursions, and as you relax in the comfort of your state-of-the-art stateroom. Here's a video about Viking expeditions. Today, we will focus on one of our signature expedition voyages in North America, called Niagara and the Great Lakes. In 8 days, you will visit 2 countries, Canada and the US. You will discover Ontario, Canada, Niagara Falls, and 2 states in the northern US, Michigan and Wisconsin. As you sail across Lake Ontario, into Lake Erie, through Lake Huron, and then into Lake Michigan. Now let's look at how you will travel from Canada down to the northern United States. Let's look at the itinerary map for a visual of your voyage. Your adventure begins in Toronto. Next, you'll sail across Lake Ontario and through the Welland Canal to Lake Erie, visiting Niagara Falls and Point Pelee National Park on the way. You'll then make your way across the border and into the northern United States, visiting Detroit, Alpena, and Mackinac Island before sailing across Lake Michigan. Your journey with Viking concludes in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. If you'd like to arrive early and take in the natural beauty of Canada prior to your trip, we're delighted to share a pre-extension package in Toronto. Algonquin Park is a 3-night package perfect for those looking to relax among the scenic wilderness in a cozy private cabin. You'll experience Ontario's oldest park, affectionately known as the Gonk by those of us who have traveled its tranquil trails and waterways and enjoyed its lakeside views. While I make no claim to be a competent birder, the dance and calls of the common loon and the whistling call of the white-throated sparrow are for me the sounds of Algonquin Park.
The Great Lakes form the largest freshwater ecosystem on Earth. The border between Canada and the U.S. passes through the center of 4 of the 5 Great Lakes, with one of the lakes, Lake Michigan, wholly within the United States. The Great Lakes include Lake Superior, the aforementioned Lake Michigan, Lake Huron, Lake Erie, and Lake Ontario. With a surface area of more than 94,000 square miles, or 240,000 square kilometers, and it just sounds a little more impressive in kilometers, the Great Lakes contain roughly 20% of the world's surface fresh water by volume. The Great Lakes are unique, offering incredible hiking, kayaking, and small boat cruising along over 10,000 miles of coastline. On this itinerary, Niagara and the Great Lakes, we'll focus on Lake Ontario on the right, Lake Erie on the bottom right, Lake Huron in the center, and Lake Michigan on the lower left.
Now a few words about the weather and when to travel. Currently, this itinerary is offered from late spring to early autumn, from April to September, except in August. Temperatures on the Great Lakes are usually mild during the summer months, but be sure to pack quick drying and waterproof clothing and accessories, along with layers for cooler days and nights. The weather is most pleasant in the spring and autumn, but beware of the mosquitoes in June. If you want to maximize your opportunities to see wildlife, millions of migratory birds pass through the region during their spring and fall migrations, so these are good times to book your trip. Our best chance of spotting other wildlife is in the springtime after a long winter, or again in September, when the weather starts to cool off and wildlife begin their migration from their summer habitat to prepare for winter hibernation. Now a few words about our expedition ships. We've applied more than 2 decades of experience and expertise in river and ocean voyages to create the perfect expedition experience that will live up to our commitment to keep you exploring the world in comfort. Here is a quote from the famous Norwegian explorer, Roald Amundsen, that speaks to the intention and thought behind the design of our brand new, state-of-the-art, Polar Class 6 expedition ships, Viking Octantis and Viking Polaris. He said, "I may say that this is the greatest factor, the way in which the expedition is equipped, the way in which every difficulty is foreseen and precautions taken for meeting or avoiding it. Victory awaits him who has everything in order." For expedition voyages, Viking is proud to introduce 2 new purpose-built ships optimally sized for expeditions, small enough to navigate remote areas, yet large enough to provide speed, superior handling, and stability in the roughest seas. Throughout the ships, there is a focus on panoramic views. You'll be as close as possible to the most majestic scenery on Earth. Let's learn more about our ship design in this video.
Creating an expedition ship worthy of the Viking name is no small endeavour, especially when our award-winning ocean and river fleet have set such high standards. When designing vessels to bring our guests to the ends of the earth and back, every part of the ship operations and guest experience has to be carefully considered. And every step of the way guided by our chairman, Torstein Hagen, whose attention to detail is second to none. To optimize safety, comfort, and guest flow, the design process was, as usual, an ongoing collaboration of many people, involving our maritime architects, interior designers, and all key departments at Viking. It's a global effort, tapping the expertise and experience of our nautical and technical staff, expedition leaders, enrichment officers, food and beverage, and hotel operations. The goal? To ensure that when our guests set off to explore the world with us, they'll enjoy the same onboard ambiance and our commitment to learning and discovery that's long distinguished Viking from others. Construction begins with the ceremonial first cutting of steel at the shipyard. The next major milestone is the keel laying. This marks the initial joining of modular components. It's celebrated with an age-old tradition and a coin from the ship's owner. The coin is meant to bring good fortune when it's welded to the vessel. This is recognized as the moment the ship comes to life. What follows is nothing short of remarkable. After months of shaping and fitting steel, our innovative expedition ship is moved to a submersible platform, so she can touch water for the very first time. This centuries-old process is known as the float-out. It's a methodical undertaking that takes nearly 2 full days to complete. From stem to stern, every joint, weld and system are thoroughly checked to ensure everything is ready for the next step in the process of building our expedition ship. And that step is a big one. We actually move the hull from the European shipyard all the way to Norway for completion. This fascinating journey begins with powerful tugs gently guiding the hull down a narrow channel through the Danube Delta. It's a challenging start to the 21-day, 7,765-kilometer voyage. Along this slender waterway, there's simply no room for error, as our expedition ship makes its way toward the first significant milestone: the open, mythical waters of the Black Sea. Then it's on to the historic Bosphorus Strait, and the challenge of navigating through one of the world's busiest channels. As the ship passes through legendary Istanbul, past the Byzantine-era Maiden's Tower, the fabled Blue Mosque and Hagia Sophia, headed for the Mediterranean and extraordinary Malta, where just off the coast, our first expedition ship, the Viking Octantis, marked the occasion with something very special. Just past dawn, her 2 ocean sisters, the Viking Star and the Viking Sea, sailed in perfect convoy a few hours in the Ionian Sea. Our first 2 ocean ships welcoming the Viking Octantis to the Viking family, while giving Chairman Torstein Hagen, myself and the rest of the expeditions team, including my Labrador Finse, who has the aft terrace named after her, a chance to observe the ship underway. It was a monumental moment, and one for the Viking history books. A glimpse at the exciting future ahead. But the journey is far from complete. The hull next rounds iconic Gibraltar, then sails up the North Atlantic, through the English Channel and the North Sea before reaching Norway, where the hull of our first expedition ship spends the next 9 months in the protected harbour of Sørvik, where she undergoes what is known as outfitting. This is a very large undertaking, as every area of the ship must be completed, checked, then reviewed again to ensure everything matches design specifications. Off-ship expedition equipment is also thoroughly readied for the adventures that lie ahead. Equally important is the feel inside our ships, and our trusted art advisor, who's helped us build one of the most significant Nordic art collections in the world, is overseeing the artwork on the expedition ships as well, with input from the ship's godmother, one of the world's greatest explorers, Liv Arnesen, who knows more about the Arctic region and Antarctica, as well as the Great Lakes, than almost anyone alive. Finse was also present here, and perhaps next time Liv and Finse meet will be on the beautiful Finse Terrace when we take formal delivery of our first expedition ship, the Viking Octantis, at the end of this year. Viking is setting a new standard, and our expedition vessel will soon be ready to take on the demands of our extraordinary voyages in the far reaches of our world.
Our vessels merge comfort and exploration in an unprecedented way. This optimized size also facilitates enhanced enrichment activities by carrying a fleet of Zodiacs, special operations boats, tandem kayaks, and 6-passenger submarines, not to mention our outstanding venues for onboard lectures and learning. We have made great strides in fine-tuning the vessel as an expedition platform by creating easy access to small boats from 9 shell doors located around the ship. This allows us to run our operation in the comfort of sheltered waters. Our onboard wet laboratory allows us to support an incredible science program and inspire our guests to participate in citizen science programs, further enabling discovery and immersion in the destination. Bringing everything together is the hangar, a Viking-exclusive in-ship marina sheltered from the wind and waves. Have a look at this short video about the hangar. If you've traveled with Viking before, you know we have the most knowledgeable tour guides. You will also have the opportunity to travel with a Viking Field Research Coordinator and 2 Viking Field Research Scientists. Science is an important aspect of your experience during the excursions, with experiential activities and fieldwork. On our expedition itineraries, we've included a comprehensive program of excursions in your cruise fare to ensure you maximize your discoveries. Some of our favorite shore excursions on this itinerary include hiking and kayaking. Viking has partnered with leading, globally recognized institutions to enrich your experience. Viking has partnered with the University of Cambridge's Scott Polar Research Institute, whose scientists will undertake fieldwork on board our expedition ships and join our voyages to share their expertise with our guests. We have also partnered with the globally recognized Cornell Lab of Ornithology, whose ornithologists will regularly be on board, field testing new observation methods and providing guest advice and interaction. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, is an American scientific agency within the United States Department of Commerce that focuses on the conditions of the oceans, major waterways, and the atmosphere. We have a research partnership with NOAA's Great Lakes Environmental Research Laboratory in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and will be supporting many NOAA research projects as we explore the Great Lakes. Our science partnerships are directed by our Viking Research Advisory Group, headed by the former director of the Scott Polar Research Institute at the University of Cambridge, Professor Julian Dowdswell. Our onboard science program is supported on board by more than 20 experts, including our Viking expedition team and field research scientists, ranging from biologists, botanists, geologists, glaciologists, oceanographers, and ornithologists to polar experts and researchers. Together, this team will work to integrate our exploration, enrichment, and research to create a deeper connection to the region. Now let's explore this 8-day itinerary, day by day. Day 1, Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Welcome to Toronto, Ontario, where your voyage begins. This bustling metropolitan city is the capital of Ontario and known for its music, diverse culture, cuisine, and iconic skyline with recognizable landmarks like the CN Tower. You'll have time to get settled into your awaiting expedition ship and then attend a briefing for the following day. Enjoy a cocktail as your adventure begins while Toronto's glittering skyline fades behind you and you forge westward across Lake Ontario. Day 2, Welland Canal and Niagara Falls. You'll be treated to a scenic ride through the locks of the Welland Canal, a man-made shipping channel that connects Lake Ontario to Lake Erie. Witness this marvel of engineering as your ship traverses a length greater than 2 football fields. On the way, you can admire views of the Ontario countryside. Welcome to Niagara Falls, one of the wonders of the world. Niagara Falls State Park is the oldest state park in America, established in 1885 as the Niagara Reservation. Over 8 million visitors explore Niagara Falls State Park annually. Altogether, it's made up of 3 waterfalls, Horseshoe Falls, which straddles the Canada-U.S. border, and the American Falls and Bridal Veil Falls, both wholly within the U.S. Witness the grandeur of the falls from both below and above. Take a boat cruise to get up close and personal, then walk along the top of Horseshoe Falls as 681,750 gallons of water per second rushes over the edge 200 feet below. Then view from the sky by way of helicopter. Or walk the quaint waterfront Niagara-on-the-Lake village and experience its old town charm. Feel the warmth of nostalgia as you stroll by antique shops, specialty boutiques, and cafes along its tree-lined streets. On day 3, you'll sail onwards to Point Pelee National Park on Lake Erie and the southernmost point on the Canadian mainland. This tiny sanctuary supports a wealth of habitats from jungle-like forest to lush wetlands to open savanna. More than 350 species of birds have been spotted migrating over the area. In fact, it's known as the warbler capital of North America. Take in the regal beauty and be on the lookout for wildlife like basking turtles, and frogs, and fish. By kayak, you can explore the diverse ecosystem of the unique marshland of Point Pelee National Park. Venture through the channel to Lake Pond, explore the smaller, lesser-known areas of the marsh such as West Cranberry Pond, East Cranberry Pond, or Redhead Pond. Or you might set out on foot along the hiking trails like the 45-minute Marsh Boardwalk, a floating boardwalk that's home to diverse wildlife like cattails, red-winged blackbirds, and painted turtles. For an extended journey, try the Centennial Bike and Hike Trail, a 2-hour, one-way, hike through dry forest, beach, and savanna. It is day 4, and we are now in Michigan, in the state's largest city, Detroit. This is also the midway point of your journey. In the 18th century, Detroit was an important fur trading post, and over time evolved into a bustling industrial metropolis. As the home of Motown, it helped launch the careers of influential recording artists and groups like the Jackson 5, Four Tops, and the Supremes. Detroit is also known as the birthplace of the automobile, where Henry Ford introduced the Model T in 1908. Experience the intricacies of this and other American legacies like exhibits featuring the Wright brothers' achievements in flight and the bus where Rosa Parks made history at the Henry Ford Museum of Innovation. Detroit's architecture paints a story of decadent history. You'll discover a mosaic of architecture such as the Art Deco Penobscot Building and the One Detroit Center, shown here on your left, a masterpiece of postmodern neo-Gothic style that stands as the tallest office building in Michigan. Let's take a moment to talk about some of the amenities on board your Viking expedition ship. The best views of vast wilderness can be seen from this heated sanctuary of 3 different temperature pools, including an inside-out pass-through swimming experience. We also have many enrichment events available. For instance, you might take part in an onboard science activity in our 380-square-foot wet lab. It was developed in partnership with the University of Cambridge and Aquaplan Niva. Here, our scientists conduct meaningful research and interact with you, our guests. Finally, here in the Nordic Spa, you can experience the ultimate healthy Scandinavian traditions from the sauna and snow grotto to a relaxing massage. Let's continue our voyage. On day 5, we welcome you to the historic city of Alpena, Michigan. This is a hidden jewel nestled along a tranquil blue bay. It's a small town with just enough liveliness to enjoy around every corner, with craft breweries, cafes, and even saloons. No wonder it's considered the sanctuary of the Great Lakes. Alpena is also the gateway to Thunder Bay. You may choose to discover the shipwrecks that lie beneath the surface of Thunder Bay during a guided kayak excursion. More than 100 wrecks sit on its bottom, several of them close to the shoreline in less than 10 feet of water. Join an underwater archaeologist as you paddle over some of the most accessible of these shipwrecks. Listen to the stories of these ships and others that were lost, and learn how modern technology is used to prevent wrecks today. Alternatively, you can explore the ecosystems that exist along the shoreline of Lake Huron during an expert-led hike. Your guide will explain the ways in which the local communities are involved in preserving the natural resources of the Great Lakes. Depending on the time of day and season, you may observe the common loon, like this one pictured here, eagles or ospreys. Black-tailed deer, bear, bobcats, and river otters also populate the region. On day 6, we dial things back and ease into a slower pace on Mackinac Island, Michigan. Here you won't find a vehicle in sight, which lends an old-world charm to the area, which can be experienced by a horse-drawn carriage, by bicycle, and of course on foot. Mackinac is a charming place. One highlight is the Grand Hotel. This former military outpost is perched on a 150-foot tall bluff and overlooks the Strait of Mackinac. Its stately Victorian-era architecture and design details, along with its history, make it a registered National Historic Landmark, with sweeping views. Instead, you may choose to break away from the city and experience the Straits of Mackinac by kayak. Depending on your route and the conditions, you could paddle by the most famous rock formation on the island, the 146-foot-tall Arch Rock. This natural limestone arch is a rare formation in the Great Lakes region and has been of importance in many Native American stories and legends. We leave Mackinac behind and on day 7 sail across and along Lake Michigan to Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Milwaukee has a rich history based on its proximity to abundant water and good land. In fact, the name Milwaukee is a translation from Milwaukee, the Algonquin word for good land. The settlement and growth of Milwaukee into what it is today was in part spurred by the opening of the Erie Canal in 1825, providing a water route from the lakes to Hudson, New York, and the Atlantic world beyond. By 1870, Milwaukee was a commercial hub supporting much of a fleet of 1,700 schooners plying the Great Lakes. This picture is of the Milwaukee Shoreline Path, showing a very modern and beautiful waterfront city that greets us today. Milwaukee has a fascinating maritime history. The first ship to land at Milwaukee was the steamer Michigan, which arrived in 1835, years before the town had a permanent pier for docking. By 1857, Milwaukee had significant port infrastructure and considered itself a port city. Very quickly, Milwaukee became a wheat distribution hub, securing significant growth and wealth to the city. This slide shows the Milwaukee Pierhead Light, an active lighthouse that was established in 1872. An amazing note about this lighthouse is that in 1926, its lens was replaced with what was called a fifth-order Fresnel lens that was used in the light until 2005. Amazing to think that a light bulb, and I use literary discretion in calling it that, of course, could last for 89 years. While Milwaukee is a vibrant and exciting city, you may be fortunate enough to look up to the sky and see a flock of sandhill cranes overhead, flying in their classic wedge formation. Sandhill cranes were native to Wisconsin, but were nearly wiped out by unregulated and excessive hunting, as well as habitat loss in the late 1800s and early 1900s. In the 1930s, just a few breeding pairs remained in Wisconsin. However, protections first delivered in the 1918 Migratory Bird Treaty Act allowed for the gradual recovery of the species. Wisconsin now has a thriving population of more than 30,000 sandhill cranes. This is one story our ornithologists will never get tired of trumpeting. Whether it be in the hustle and bustle of the city or a quiet stroll along the lakeshore, our shore excursion activities will be sure to make the most out of this unique city.
Your journey with Viking concludes on day 8 in Milwaukee. After breakfast on board, many of you will disembark and proceed to the airport for your return flight home. Or perhaps you've opted to continue your voyage with a post-extension package. We have a very special 2-night post-extension package in Chicago. This is perfect for art and architecture lovers. Thank you for joining me today on Viking.TV. We look forward to welcoming you on board and sharing this itinerary with you in person. For now, this concludes our presentation, and now we have time for your questions.
Perfect. So we've got some questions here from some of our viewers. Neil from the United States asks, how much are the water levels of the Great Lakes controlled? In particular, let's say if Lake Michigan gets too high water levels, what can be done about it?
Not a lot. The lakes are as big as some small seas in other parts of the world. So it's not like they're not lakes in the sense where you could open a dam to lower the level of a lake. This works quite well in the western United States, where you can lower lakes like Lake Powell or Lake Mead. It doesn't work that way in the Great Lakes. They're natural bodies of water, and as a matter of fact, every once in a while, high water can wreak havoc on the shorelines of the lakes. And there's not, it's you know, that's nature taking its course.
Perfect, thank you, Joost. And then Jarell from the United States asks, what animals should I expect to see on this expedition cruise?
Aaron, you want to take that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Animals, I touched on birds a little bit on the with the slides and with some of the images. Of course, the birds we'll see throughout the trip. Animals on shore, it's a little tougher to find them. We have to be looking quite carefully. We could see deer. If we're fortunate, we'll as we get into northern Lake Michigan, moose, perhaps bear. But it's you really have to be looking. We'll be encouraging you to be out early in the morning as we're approaching the shore, approaching our visit stops with your binoculars, scanning the shoreline. It seems in the summer, it seems to be early morning and late, sort of dusk, just before dusk is when animals are coming down to the shoreline. They tend to stay away from it during the heat of the day.
Perfect. Thanks, Aaron. And Lucy from the US asks, is there any particular month when the falls are at their most spectacular?
The Niagara Falls. Well, Aaron, you must have an opinion on this too, but I really like early in the season, and I don't think we're quite there with the ship early enough to have where there's still ice in the river. But it's in some seasons, in some years, it stays in quite long. If there's no ice in the river, I would say that any time of year is a good time of year. That river is quite well regulated, and so there's always it's not like it ever dries up, for instance.
Yeah, I would concur.
Perfect, thank you. And then Sabrina from the US asks, how will the submarines be used on the expeditions to the Great Lakes? Is the water even clear enough?
That depends on where exactly we would deploy them. But the submarines deployment in the Great Lakes is much more limited, for instance, than in Antarctica or in the Arctic. That's entirely true. Some of the lakes are not deep enough, or some of the areas, at least near the shoreline, aren't deep enough to deploy them.
Perfect. And then I've got Marlene from the US who asks, the Welland Canal transit through the locks looks an interesting experience. How long does this take? And will there be commentary to explain some of the engineering along the way?
Aaron?
Yeah, I was just going to say it's a few hours through. Depending on the time of day we go through, we will give commentary. And the time of day, of course, we'd like to book the best possible time to get through the Welland Canal, but it is a busy waterway, so that gets dictated to us by the Canal Authority. So if we're going through during daylight, we will definitely be narrating and encouraging you to be out, looking out your windows or up on the top deck looking down. Yeah. It's quite a fantastic, it'll be a very narrow transit.
And I think most of the time, Aaron, we have at least a few hours of transiting during daylight.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect, thank you. And then Cody from the United States asks, during the warmer months, would passengers be able to swim in the lakes from the ship itself?
We're going to strongly discourage anybody from jumping off the side of the ship. But there might be days when we put Zodiacs down, and you can swim from a Zodiac. We'll let you know in advance. Most of the places we're going will have access to great beaches, great shorelines, where if you'd like to go for a swim, we'll let you know what the opportunities are and get you to those sites.
Perfect, thank you, Aaron. And then I've got Debbie, also from the United States. She's been waiting for the 2023 schedule. She sees that there are no dates for September yet. Will there be any scheduled for September? But if not, what month would you suggest going on this itinerary?
This one is in peak season, so it's in our summer. In September, for this particular itinerary, we may already be on our way out of the Great Lakes. It shifts a little bit from year to year, and that's why you may not see any September dates. It's also possible that they're just not quite on sale yet, but most of the season will already be open for sale. So it could be a little late in the season already, September. Maybe we're already going through the St. Lawrence Seaway and on our way to Antarctica.
Perfect, thank you, Joost. And then Kathleen from the United States asks, are there any black flies in June in the Great Lakes?
In some areas of the Great Lakes, there are. On this itinerary, you're somewhat in the southern areas. I don't think you would have a big problem with it. No.
Perfect. And then John from the United States asks, why not offer a cruise that travels through all 5 of the Great Lakes in one itinerary?
We are, and that's coming. That's a coming attraction. It's a new cruise that will go on sale in a few weeks. That covers all 5 lakes. And you can combine the cruises that you currently have if you want to.
Perfect, thank you, Joost. And then we have got Mina from the United States who asks, we are booked to travel in June next year from Toronto. I'm looking forward to the bird spotting opportunities from the ship and also from the shore. Will bird guides be included in the rooms as well as binoculars?
Binoculars, yes, and we actually have something that's even better than bird guides. We will have a very well-stocked library, and you will find bird guides there. What we have done for all of our expedition cruises is we've partnered with the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. And they have a program called eBird, where you can simply use your smartphone to record whatever bird sightings you have. There are bird packs. We've actually sponsored a few of these to make sure that they're available to our guests to identify birds, and also, and this is where I think it gets really interesting, to not just to spot them, to find out more about them, and then to record it. And all this information goes back to the database of the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. And our guests that way get to participate in essentially in mapping the birds in the Great Lakes. And the great thing is that, and this has some of our scientific partners really excited, there aren't that many measurings of birds over the lakes. There's a lot, of course, about the birds on shore, but where exactly, and these are vast expanses of water, and our ships will be traveling up and down some of these lakes quite a bit. And so Cornell's actually quite excited about the sightings that we will make, because they believe that they can learn quite a bit from bird behavior, migratory bird behavior in the Great Lakes, due to what our guests will be doing. They will be contributing to real science.
That app is called Merlin Bird ID, and it's available on the various phone software app stores, or the Google Play, I think, is the other store. And it's a free download, and then you can download packs, so bird regional packs that have all the information for the region you're traveling. It's a great for traveling. It's great to have for your home, for your own backyard.
And on the ship, we will always have a Cornell ornithologist to assist with your bird spotting and bird watching.
Perfect. And Freddie from the UK asks that he asks, let me start again. He loves your jumpers. How does he get one?
You can go on the Dale website. Dale this is a sweater that comes from Norway. It's a Norwegian brand, and it's there's a bit of a story to it, but you can go on this on the Dale website. It's DALE, and I believe it's .no, but you simply Google Dala of Norway. You will get to their website, and that's where you can order them. And of course, anytime that you travel with us, we'll have them in your size on the ship.
Perfect. And then Peter from the US asks, he saw the show on Viking.TV on Monday about the Henry Ford Museum. But on this cruise, how much time will we have to tour the museum? And because there seems like a lot to be seen on the tour.
Sorry, I didn't get the last bit.
The question was, how much time will there be to see the Henry Ford Museum?
Several hours still. The way it will work in Detroit, we have an afternoon in Detroit, so we don't have a full day there. But it will simply, for people that want to go to the Henry Ford, it will simply be a matter of getting off the ship onto a coach and bringing you to Dearborn, where the museum is. So you'll have several hours.
Perfect. And then Candice from the US asks, well, she's keen to try kayaking over the shipwrecks in Thunder Bay, but would like to know how physically demanding it would be. She's not been kayaking before. Can it be done as a novice?
Yes, it can be done as a novice, and what we would do on that day is just make a recommendation based on the weather conditions. If it's your first time out, we'll be working with a local operator in Thunder Bay with an expertise in that area. If the conditions are calm, then we'll say yes to novices, and if it's a choppier day with bouncy, then we will probably recommend that it's more. That you might find something more interesting or a little more comfortable to do that day.
Perfect. And then Connie from the US asks, did I hear something about a submarine feature? Could you explain this a little bit more, please?
Sure. Aaron, you want to take that?
A submarine feature. We have 2 subs on board the ship, 2 6-passenger subs. The opportunity to use them on the Great Lakes on this trip is fairly limited. We are hoping to work with NOAA and the Great Lakes Environmental Research Laboratory to use them for some research on in American waters on the Great Lakes. And more on that as we get closer to the voyage, as we make these agreements. In Thunder Bay Marine Sanctuary it's a maritime sanctuary to preserve Thunder Bay, the shipwrecks of Thunder Bay. And so that's the submarine feature that we're going to experience. And some of those shipwrecks are in quite shallow and quite clear water that we can see either from kayaks or from a local tour boat that would take us out on a bit of a shipwreck tour with a maritime archaeologist.
Perfect. Thank you, Aaron. And then I've got Nancy from the United States asking, when is the mosquito season for this itinerary? And what's the weather like in May and July? So 2 questions there for you.
It sounds from the question that she knows the answer, that it's June is probably the mosquito season. Although we're on this itinerary, we're in a pretty good place to avoid much of the heavy mosquitoes areas that we'd see in the north end of the Great Lakes. The weather in May can be beautiful days. It can be fairly stable weather in May. Temperatures, Joost, you're going to have to help me with Fahrenheit. I guess I'm Celsius.
It's in the mid 60s, I would say, most days. It's 60s to low 70s. It's pleasant. May is pleasant.
Yeah. And then July is warmer, hotter, but still pleasant. Being on the Great Lakes, it's a semi-maritime climate. So it any day it gets warmer, we tend to get a breeze that cools us off fairly quickly.
Perfect. And then Philip from the United States says that he is a retired US Navy engineering officer and was wondering if he would have the opportunity to see the engineering spaces on the ship, to go behind the scenes.
That's always up to the captain. The answer is yes, we welcome that, but it always depends on where we are, how busy the ship is. We cannot always promise it, but overall, from one Navy man to another, or to a captain, we usually try to make that work. Absolutely.
Perfect. And I've got another weather-related question here for you. What is the weather like in April? Is it rainy or cold, or a mixture of both?
It's somewhat nippy, maybe, but it's not all that bad. No. And the further north you get, obviously, and I guess it also, I would imagine that on the water itself, it does get, when you're in the middle of Lake Huron, it will, out on deck, it will get a little nippy. You'll need one of these. But other than that, it's not unpleasant.
Perfect. Thank you, Joost. And then Patty from the United States asks, how rough are the waters on the Great Lakes? Are there times when the lakes are calmer?
Fall is bad, huh, Aaron?
Yeah, the gales of November, November's known for the gales of November, but generally through the summer, the weather's fairly stable on the Great Lakes. The weather predicting is very good. The weather forecasting is very good for the region. So we have good information. If there's a storm rolling through, generally they're fairly quick storms that roll through, squalls that come through, and we know they're coming. And so there wouldn't, for a ship of our caliber, we wouldn't be experiencing anything that would be really challenging to us. Our ships are designed to go anywhere in the world. They're purpose-built to go across the Drake Passage to Antarctica. So from a safety perspective and comfort, that's not a concern. We do hope to get a squall through every once in a while, just to show you the power of Mother Nature out on one of the lakes, and to remind you that these lakes are vast. But yeah, the summer is pretty stable.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. And I've got a question here from Mike in the United States. How close does the ship get to the Niagara Falls?
The ship runs parallel through the Welland Canal, and the Niagara Falls is in the Niagara River, and the Welland Canal bypasses that river. It's the river itself is not really navigable to a great extent. So with the ship itself, we don't get very close to the falls. Having said that, we dock the ship in Port Colborne, and that's only about 20 minutes away from the falls by coach.
Perfect, thank you, Joost. And then I've got another question about the submersibles here from Harry. He asks, please, can you give me more information about the submersibles? How often and how long will I be able to go on them for on one of our expedition cruises?
Depending on the trip you go on, we strive to get everyone on the sub at least once. But again, in the Great Lakes, it's not all that. A lot depends on weather. The weather has to be just so, and we have to have visibility and all that. I would say, especially in the Great Lakes, if that's the only thing that you're looking out for a cruise, I would go to Antarctica instead.
Perfect, thank you, Joost. And then, what's the advantage of the hull and bow design of the Octantis?
Well, there's so many advantages. One is just the look of the ship. It just looks so much better than any of our competitors' ships. But from I may be slightly biased. but from a I guess a punching through waves from a stability point of view, the ship is designed to be comfortable with lateral seas, with seas coming along, hitting it on the beam on the side of the ship, or pushing through heavier seas. So it's designed. It's a long ship. It's a 205-meter long hull. So it's designed to be, I guess in nautical terms, longitudinally stable. So it's not going to be pitching up and down as quite as much as a smaller ship. One of the advantages to the shape of the bow and the fact that we've got that open bow deck is that the bow viewing, when the captain opens the bow deck to viewing, it gets us right forward, right to the front of the ship, and we can be looking at wildlife in the water, or as we're going along, approaching shore. It's a great place to view from. But really, seaworthiness and stability are the main advantages, and then it doesn't hurt that it looks fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. And that question was from Tracy from the United States. The next question I've got is from Christine, who is also in the US. I used to live in Michigan. May and June can bring some quite unpredictable weather. What kind of precautions is Viking taking during those times?
I think the weather in Antarctica is less predictable, and that's what the ship's built for.
Yeah, from a vessel comfort point of view, I think we're more than comfortable with any weather that the Great Lakes will throw at us throughout the season. From an excursion point of view, we're bearing in mind that there are in the spring there are challenging days for excursions, and we've worked with our partners on shore in the various parts to make sure that we have good options that will help us with deal with any inclement weather. The ship being designed to operate in the polar regions, designed to operate where there are no docks to come alongside. We have the ability to basically create our own lee, our own shelter, to launch Zodiacs from, or to launch tenders from. The ship being 200 meters long, it creates a nice windbreak, and it's designed with stern thrust or stern azipods and bow thrusters to hold itself across the wind to give us that shelter. So that gives us the ability to launch and recover small boats and guests onto those small boats in comfort. But of course, there are some days when Mother Nature is in charge, and then we will just salute her and continue with our education and enrichment program, and be ready to take advantage of the conditions as soon as they get better.
Perfect, thank you. And then I've got Dave from the United States who asks, will I have the option to go scuba diving in the Great Lakes on this cruise?
We haven't explored that yet. Is the short answer. We're still we have a robust program, but this is a continual work in progress. And I have not seen, Aaron, I don't know if you have, but I have not seen any real good spots on this particular itinerary where that would work well, except Alpena. But I think we would need to work with a local operator there, and I don't believe that we have found someone that would be that we could reasonably partner with at this stage.
Perfect, thank you. And then Barry, also from the US, asks, will there be any excursions that focus on taking photos? So whether that's photos of the landscapes or on animals?
Yes. And this is something that plays an enormous role, of course, when you go to faraway places like Antarctica. But generally, we have a photographer on the ship, and that photographer's job is not so much to take pictures, but to help other people take pictures. So yes.
We've also built in some tours in a few of the communities we're visiting where there are sites, perhaps sites of architectural interest, to work with local photographers who have the knowledge of the best angles for these sites, or the hidden gems. And so we've got a combination of our own photographer on board and our own photo program, but also working with local photographers in some of the communities.
Mm. Yeah.
Perfect, thank you. And then I've got Thomas from the United States, who asks, is there the opportunity to go in a glass-bottomed boat in Alpena as part of this cruise?
Yes. Short and sweet answer, yes.
Good. We like a short and sweet answer.
Sometimes it's that simple.
And then I believe this is going to be the last question from Janet, who's also in the US. Will there be any guided stargazing opportunities during this cruise?
Simple answer again. Yes.
Oh, we like to finish on simple answers. And that is all of the questions we have.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for taking the time today to join us, and we'll look forward to seeing you on board at some point down the road.